as I'm talking. But with that, the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County welcomes all of you to our workshop this evening, and I'm going to hand it over to Kalani Brown now to introduce Betty Ann Mobley.
Hello, everyone. I just want to have a few housekeeping rules. Please keep yourself on mute. So Betty Ann will be presenting for about 1 hour, and we'll allow for about 30 minutes for questions. And so if you do have a question, please post it on the chat, and we'll be monitoring that and make sure that we're answering those questions when the so about 8:30 we'll start answering the questions. And I know some of you may have already emailed some questions the administrator to the Down Network, and I do have those questions, so I will make sure that I ask those questions as well. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce Betty Ann. So Betty Ann Mobley has worked with state and national organizations in the field of intellectual and developmental disabilities for more than 35 years. She has served in many leadership roles supporting people with disabilities through advocacy, developing and implementing quality systems, and providing consultation to organizations that provide supports and services. She previously held with both state and national organizations where she was able to establish relationships with key stakeholders and leaders throughout the field of disabilities. As director of the Maryland ABLE program, she is excited to be part of the development and implementation of ABLE in Maryland and nationwide. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Ann.
Thank you, Kalani, and thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak with you tonight. We're working with sharing this screen back and forth, so you guys have to let me know if there's something on the screen that you don't want to see on the screen, because right now I think I'm just sharing my PowerPoint. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your evening. I know everybody's busy, everybody has a lot of things to do every day, and to invite us into your homes to talk about Maryland ABLE is very exciting for us. And I hope by the end of this evening's presentation, you'll be just as excited as I am about this wonderful program. You know, people often say, well, Maryland ABLE, what is it? Well, it's a program that's been designed so that families and people with disabilities finally have the opportunity to save money and not worry about all of these asset limits that they've been challenged with throughout time, and worrying about those asset limits because they're fearful of losing really critical federal and state benefits like SSI, Medicaid, waiver services, SNAP, and other kinds of services. So let's talk about how it came into being. Historically, what happened is back in 2014, there was legislation that was passed during the Obama administration, and it was called the Stephen A. Beck Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. And, you know, we have to have acronyms in this field. So Achieving a Better Life Experience is ABLE. And so it's easier for us to say that. And this was signed because people like yourselves, advocates for folks with disabilities, people with disabilities themselves were saying, you know, it just isn't right that you can save for your other children and you can save as a person with a disability, without a disability for retirement and things like that. But when you have a disability and you have some sort of benefits, oftentimes you no longer have the ability to save because you have these restrictions placed upon you by the asset caps on those limits. And so parents, particularly Mr. Beck, who is from Northern Virginia, he said, you know, I'm saving for college for 2 of my children. And for my daughter, I don't have the opportunity to save for her because she has a disability and she has benefits. And so I want the opportunity to do this. That's why he was such a strong advocate in this process that the law was actually named after him as the Stephen A. Beck Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. So the law was passed. The federal law said, okay, great. Now states, you can go and open ABLE programs so that people can begin to save money. Now there was no money that came with this program. And so states had to decide whether or not they were going to set up programs. And as of today, there are 43 states in the District of Columbia that have ABLE programs. Some of those programs are open for national enrollment, meaning you can live anywhere and enroll in the program, such as Maryland's program. And then some states are limited to enrollment only within their state, like Florida. You cannot enroll in the Florida program unless you're a resident of the state of Florida. Another really interesting and important thing for you to understand is that we are not part of Medicaid laws. We're not part of Social Security laws. we're actually part of the Internal Revenue Code. And in the Internal Revenue Code, you'll see 529 as a number. Well, 529, oftentimes when people hear that, they think, oh, college savings plans. And that's right, 529 in the Internal Revenue Code is all about college savings plans. And ABLE, because it was set up to be able to give families and people the opportunity to save like you can for college, is actually 529A in the Internal Revenue Code. In fact, our final regulations were just introduced to us in November. And so we're still working and to make sure that everything is in line with the final regulations. We have 2 years to come in full compliance. So we are part of the Internal Revenue Code. And you'll hear throughout my presentation some direct links to tax law that lets you know we're very much a part of that Internal Revenue Code. So the law passed in 2014. It took Maryland a couple of years before we actually were able to get our own law passed in Maryland to establish an ABLE program. And that happened on April 12th, 2016. There was first a committee set up to kind of investigate what a program should look like and how we would run it and where it would reside. And we're actually operated by Maryland 529. And Maryland 529 includes both of our college savings plans and ABLE. So that's where we exist. Now, we didn't launch until actually November of 2017, so a year and a half later. But since we've launched, we have been able to support over 3,000 people on our program alone. And those 3,000 people, as of today, had been able to save, hold on to your seats here, guys, $28.6 million in 3 years. So it's a program that is really giving people the opportunity to save money. How do people get qualified to be able to open this program? Well, it's in the law, it says that the person has to have a disability that was identified prior to their 26th birthday. And so if we're thinking about you as an audience, this is something that is naturally going to automatically have occurred if in fact you or your family member have Down syndrome, because it's a birth. The diagnosis is diagnosed at birth, and therefore it's prior to the 26th birthday. But that's a really critical piece for us, something we're actually new federal legislation to pass hopefully this year called the Age Adjustment Act, where we hope to get that increased to age 46 because 26 was dropped in at the last minute when people were afraid this program was going to cost the federal government too much. And if you think about the time frame when this was passed in 2016, it's when the Affordable Care Act was being passed. And so they took the 26 directly from the Affordable Care Act and dropped it into ABLE. We hope to be able to serve more people with things like traumatic brain injuries and disabilities that occur later in life, or illnesses that cause significant challenges in one's life. You also have to be able to meet the Social Security definition of disability, saying that you've been found eligible for SSI or SSDI, or that you have a certification from a licensed physician. So one of the things that we recognize is that sometimes, particularly children, aren't yet receiving SSI or SSDI, and they haven't been qualified because of income for parents, but just being eligible by nature of their disability. The disability certification from a licensed physician saying that you meet this, we actually have a form on our website. It's a kind of frame letter or form letter that you can take to the doctor, and the doctor just signs off that in fact, the person who's opening the account or is going to have the account is a person who has a disability that qualifies, and that disability was noted before the 26th birthday, okay? So one of the really different things about ABLE and college savings plans, even though they have some things in common, is that in ABLE, there can only ever be one account for a person. So unlike college savings, where you can have multiple accounts for the person, you can only have one account. And the other interesting thing here is the person who has the disability, no matter what their age, is always the account owner and the beneficiary. Okay, so always the account owner and the beneficiary. But reality says that many folks are under the age of 18 or may not have the ability to manage their account on their own. So we have a process called Authorized Legal Representative. You'll hear me say the acronym ALR for Authorized Legal Representative. And that is someone who is able to manage the account in helping the person to have an ABLE account. An authorized legal representative is someone who is either a full legal guardian, which includes guardianship of property, or could just have guardianship of property, or could have power of attorney. And again, we provide a form on our website that is a power of attorney template that gives the authority to manage just the ABLE account. So until your child is 18 years old, as the parent or legal guardian, you don't have to worry about that. But once your child turns 18 and they become, they then have their rights as an 18-year-old and can move forward, then it's important that if you're going to continue to assist them to manage the account, to have access to the account, you would want to get a power of attorney at the very least. And again, this power of attorney is limited to the ABLE account itself. It doesn't include any other decisions for the person. We're really, really focused on making sure people have the rights and that they exercise all rights that they are able to exercise. So we just have this power of attorney to manage the ABLE account. So what are some of the reasons why people open ABLE accounts, and what are some of the key features that we have? Well, we really focused when we set up this program to make enrollment as easy as possible, recognizing that many of you as parents and family members of people with disabilities, or even people with disabilities yourself, are used to these stacks of paper that you have to complete anytime you want to do something, anytime you want to use something. And so this is not really a paper-driven process. While we do have a paper enrollment form, most people choose to just enroll online. So there doesn't have to be a lot of paper, and enrollment online, they tell me it takes about anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. So it can be a very quick process, shouldn't take you long at all. The other thing is that we have provided an opportunity through the ABLE program for people to easily access their funds. Certainly there are other kinds of systems that will help to protect assets for folks, things like trusts. And while we see trusts and ABLE all as tools in a toolkit and ways that people can protect those assets, we know that for some people, it's very costly to establish a trust if they don't have a large settlement or a lot of money at one time. And then the other thing is it can be a little bit more difficult to access the funds because it goes through the trustee, or there has to be an approval, you're using a lawyer. Whereas with ABLE, it's just like your online banking. It's right there, and you can access the funds by transferring them back and forth between a linked account. And I'm going to tell you more about that later. Really important is, again, that it is a protection of assets. Now, I want to share with you, it protects assets, but not income. So if you have a child who's making money and a person who later in life is going to work, it's not going to protect their benefits from their income levels, but any money that they're saving, any assets that they are saving and putting aside, it continues to be an asset protection. Really wonderful thing about an ABLE account is that while the money is in an ABLE account, it is earning interest or dividends depending on where you choose to put the money. And unlike you and I, who are maybe filing our taxes at this time and have to claim any interest or dividends as income, there is no tax on interest or dividend of money in an ABLE account, not when it's in the ABLE account or when it is taken out of the ABLE account, as long as it's spent on what we call qualified disability expenses. And I'm going to give you some more examples of those just a little bit later on too. One of the laws that is in the Federal Register or in the IRS tax code, and this applies to any ABLE program across the country, is that there is a contribution limit of $15,000 per calendar year. And some people say to us, well, where did that come from? You know, did they just pick that out of the sky? Well, quite honestly, I told you we're in the tax. And in the tax code, you are able to give a gift of $15,000 a year without there being taxes. So it's the gift tax exclusion. We tell you that because that does change from time to time. In fact, when we opened our program in 2017, it was only $14,000. And when the IRS increased it to $15,000, we got to increase it for ABLE. That resets on January 1 of every year. So contributions every year for a standard contribution can be up to $15,000 a year. What the ABLE account does is it takes that asset limitation, and let's use Social Security SSI benefits as the example. For those of you who are currently receiving those benefits, you know that there's a $2,000 asset cap before which benefits, cash benefits, begin to be reduced. When you use an ABLE account, you increase that limit from $2,000 to actually $102,000, because you can have up to $100,000 in the ABLE account and up to $2,000 outside before the cash benefits would be affected. So imagine that you've gone from a $2,000 limit to a $102,000 limit. It really has given much more opportunity for savings for people with disability. And then we also know that there are people who have opened ABLE accounts in other states prior to the Maryland program opening, because it did take us a couple of years to open. And so it is possible, if after this presentation, you currently have an account in another state and you say, man, I think that the Maryland program has some benefits that we could take advantage of we don't get from our other program, or maybe the costs are less, you are able to roll over from one state to another. And I also say that because we also know that in Maryland, we have a lot of military families, and they say to us, well, what if I move? And the answer to that question would be, if you move, you can keep your Maryland ABLE account. You don't have to move it. But if you would choose to move it to the state that you've moved to, it can be rolled over to that other state's plan if they have a state that is open for enrollment. There are just a few states that don't yet have programs. So we were lucky enough to get the law passed in 2016, 14 and 16 in Maryland. And then in 2017, there was a huge tax package that went through the federal government called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And that gave us some additional features to add to our program. It was known that there were people who had begun to save money through college savings programs, and then later realized, you know, my child isn't going to be able to use this money in the way that it's restricted by college savings, such as to an accredited program or a specific type of industry, or they're just not going to be able to use it based on the restrictions that there are in a college savings program. And so now people are able to roll over money that they may have put in a college savings plan into an ABLE account. So there's just a few rules with that. The beneficiary has to be the same beneficiary or a member of the beneficiary's family as identified by the college savings plan, which is a fairly long list of relations. So in ABLE, we talk about beneficiaries and member of the family, family being siblings, but in college savings, it can be parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents. And so as long as the beneficiary is the same, it can be rolled over. So the other part of this is, if you happen to have two children with college savings plans, the way Mr. Beck did, and one child who has an ABLE account, and those two children with college savings plans don't use all of the money in their college savings plan, they could, and they're not going to be able to use that money, they could effectively roll that into their sibling's ABLE account. And then their sibling would have access to that for disability kinds of expenses. The other caveat to this is that the maximum amount you can roll over in any given year would be $15,000 less any contributions had been made for the year, because as I said, the ABLE account can only receive $15,000 in contributions per year. And so if you already had $3,000 in and you wanted to roll a $40,000 college savings plan in, what you could do is you could roll over $12,000 this year, and then next year another $15,000, and the subsequent year until the balance was all rolled over. Another thing that came to us in this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was what is called the Able to Work Act. And this is a really wonderful thing for folks with disabilities who have begun to work. In the past, there was a lot of discouragement. People didn't want to work. They didn't want to lose their benefits. They couldn't save their money. They knew their money was just going to have to be spent right away. And now they can. The eligibility to use Able to Work as an add-on to that $15,000 savings each year is that the beneficiary, the person who's working, cannot be contributing to a retirement plan or have their employer contribute to a retirement plan and within that taxable year. And if that's the case, then they're eligible to use Able to Work as an additional contribution. So those contributions that are able to work contributions are actually above and beyond that $15,000 limit. That standard $15,000 limit can come from anyone, but the able to work comes from the person, not just their wages, but from the person. And so what it does is it gives the person who is working an opportunity to potentially put some additional money aside. The thought was for the federal government that it was giving them the opportunity to put some additional money aside, potentially for retirement, but you can use it however you want. You're not limited to any retirement type expenses. So this is a number that changes every year. And so you have to check in with us to find out what this number is. This year it's $12,760 per person, but it's also limited by the person's gross income for the year. So let me give you an example there. If someone were working and they were making $5,000 in gross income this year, they could have $15,000 contributed from any source into their ABLE account, and they themselves, from whatever resource they have, could contribute an additional $5,000, the amount of their income. So they actually get to deposit $12,000 that year. However, if the person really good job and they're making $45,000 this year, they would be able to deposit the $15,000 from any source, and they'd be able to deposit an additional $12,760. They can't do the full amount because they're limited to the $1,260. And where does that number come from, you might ask? That actually is tied to the previous year's federal poverty level for a single person. So that's why it changes every year. With the stimulus packages and the pandemic aid that has come out through COVID, a lot of people who have disabilities have been eligible for unemployment benefits that were not eligible in the past. And so we're hearing from a lot of folks that they've not only gotten these unemployment benefits, but the additional unemployment monies, and they ask us, can it go into an ABLE account? And yes, unemployment benefits can be deposited into an ABLE account as a savings, and it can go into either bucket. But remember, unemployment benefits are not income. So when you're thinking about what is the amount of able to work that you can contribute for the year, it's about gross income for the year. So you can't count the unemployment benefits as gross income, meaning you can't use that to figure out how much you can deposit. But if you're still going to have work during this calendar year, you can use that amount to determine the gross income. You can put unemployment benefits either in the able to work bucket or in the standard contribution bucket. So you are able to put unemployment benefits into an ABLE account if someone is getting those. Now here's the $10,000 question. So we've got this money in an ABLE account. Well, what can we use it for? What is it all about? Well, we use this money for what is called qualified disability expenses. And this is another thing that people are often very unused to. And they say to us, well, who do I submit the request to? And who do I submit the receipts to? And the answer to that is you don't. You determine, as a person with a disability or the family member supporting a person with a disability, what is a qualified disability expense for the account owner, the beneficiary, because that varies from one person to the next, depending upon who they are and what's going on in their life. The law says qualified disability expenses are things that support a person in health, independence, and quality of life. So wow, that's wide open. They further go on to give us these categories that you see here as just categories for examples of things that would qualify. Let's talk a little bit about a few of these. Health prevention and wellness. If you are paying co-pays or paying for medications or medical procedures, or if you're someone who is using Medicaid and has to pay for dental procedures, all of those things would be considered qualified disability expenses. You can see education is on here. So while you may not have a college savings plan, you can use this for education in any way. And that education could be a class at the community college, or a class to learn a trade, or it could be a class just to learn how to paint or bake or any of those kinds of things, any type of education. Employment training and support. Sometimes people get a limited amount of support for this, whether it's through the school system or through the waiver as they get older. And if there's a need for additional kinds of support, like maybe personal aid support or some things that are not covered by other benefits, that can be paid for out of this account too. We have transportation on there, and that could include planes, trains, and automobiles. It could include anything that the person is using for transportation having to pay for could be reimbursed out of this. We talk about housing. Housing is a special category on this particular list. The reason I skipped over it at first is because all of these expenses can come out of the ABLE account and can stay in the outside banking account for a period of time, even beyond a month, and not count as an asset because they were first in an ABLE account. But with housing, if you're withdrawing money from an ABLE account for housing, such as rent or mortgage, you must expend that money in the same calendar month that you withdrew it. It's the only expense that has that special rule, rent and mortgage, housing expenses. So in other words, if you're a person who gets SSI benefits and you're going to pay April's rent and you withdraw it today, you need to make sure that you've mailed in your check before April 1st so that the money is coming out of the account, because at the end of the month, it would be considered money that would be an asset in that account. Conversely, we say assistive technology and personal support services. Let's say your family member was going to buy a new computer system that they were going to use, and they withdrew $1,500 for that computer system, and then they said, oh my gosh, next month I see there's going to be this big holiday sale at Best Buy. I don't want to buy it now, I'm going to buy it later. It would be fine, even if that $1,500 puts you over the $2,000 at the end of the month. Social Security will allow that to happen because you're going to spend it on a qualified disability expense. And if there were ever a question as to why you were over that, you merely just produce the receipt. You do have to keep track of these expenses. You have to make sure that you can justify the expenses that were made, such as just maintaining your receipts. And how long do you have to retain those? For the same time frame you do for your taxes. Again, we're linked back to that IRS tax code and the taxes. So if you have to keep your taxes and receipts for up to 5 years, you need to keep these for the same amount of time. One of the things I want to point out here is it says funeral and burial expenses. So something very different from an ABLE account and a trust is that a trust shuts down immediately when the person passes. With an ABLE account, when the person passes, any committed expenses for the person, such as medical bills, anything done on a payment plan, or even funeral and burial expenses can be taken out of the ABLE account and used. So it doesn't shut down immediately. It is an account that remains open so that the person's expenses that they had during the time that they were alive and any post-life expenses that they might need can be covered out of the ABLE program. Let's talk a little bit more about our plan features. So I told you we have the opportunity for you to enroll online or with paper. Some people are just very much paper people or don't like doing things online. So we do offer that as an alternative, but most people do choose to do it online. The woman who works with me, Kelly, she has a daughter and she's given me permission to talk about this, who has an ABLE account. And she told me that it took her not even 20 minutes to do the whole registration for the ABLE account. And we do have support available to you if you have any questions while you're doing that. It gives us, in Maryland, we have an opportunity for people once they put money into the account to choose where they want that money to go. Do they want to put it in what we call our cash option, which is similar to a savings account option? Or do they want to put it in one of our investment options so that there's some stocks involved in what is taking place and earning the money, dividends and interest. So that's a thing that we have here in Maryland, and we have 3 investment options, a conservative, moderate, and aggressive option, which I'll go into more details with in just a bit. The nice thing is that contributions from this account can be made by check, by automatic deposit, or by electronic funds transfer. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast. Anyway, and so it's really important to know we're linking this to an outside bank account for most people. Everyone doesn't have to, but that is mostly how people do this because it's a very easy way to transfer money both into the ABLE account and out of the ABLE account. Another number that is common, or that is part of what Maryland has, is that over the lifetime of the account, you can have contributions up to $500,000, or when the account balance, I should say, reaches $500,000. And I just can't wait till the first person gets $500,000 in their ABLE account. We're not there yet. We haven't been open long enough. But when you get $500,000 into your ABLE account, then we can't take any more contributions until that account balance goes below $500,000. Once it goes below 500,000, we can take contributions again. And you might say, well, where did that $500,000 number come from? Here's one of the things that links us to our Maryland college savings plans. In Maryland, a college savings plan can only accept up to $500,000 as a balance before contributions can no longer be accepted. And I guess this is the bad news. That means that if a baby were born today, they expect that it will cost, when they are ready to go to college, $500,000 for a 4-year degree. So 500,000 comes from. Here are those account types that I told you about. We have this cash option. And as I said, it's FDIC insured up to $250,000, just like a banking product or savings account at your bank. And that is something that people sometimes choose to put their money in. But we also have investment options. The conservative option is an option that is just what it says. It only has 20% of the monies in this package that go to purchasing stock, and 80% goes to bonds. So it's a very low risk investment option. Moderate is just what it is, 50-50. 50% go to stocks and 50% go bonds. And aggressive, we didn't want to put people at complete risk, so it's 84% of it goes to stocks and 16% goes to bonds. Now, all of our stocks are part of stocks that are offered through the Vanguard that portfolio. And if you look in our program disclosure booklet, you'll see exactly which stocks those are that make up our portfolio and the amount of each of those contributions that goes to which stock program. One of the things that people can do is they can choose that they want a combination of these two. They can say, well, I want some to go to cash and I want some to go to an investment option. So you can split it. You can have 100% in cash. You can have 100% in one of the cash investment options, or you can have a percent in cash and a percent in the investment option. The SEC allows you to change that investment choice or the choice of those percentages or where you have your money up to 2 times per year. So you do have the opportunity to change it even if you make a selection at the time of enrollment and you want to change that later on. Some additional features that we have with our Maryland ABLE program is we have an online gifting platform, which allows for other people to help contribute to an ABLE account. You get to set that up. In fact, Kelly's daughter, Lily, she sends me an email from her gifting platform every year around her birthday and around the holidays. And it says, hi, it's Lily. If you want to make a contribution to my ABLE account, here's how you do it. And it's very easy for me to just make a contribution to her account. And that's nice because then she gets to take it and use it however she wants. And I don't find her something that drives her mother crazy because it just takes up space in the living room or somewhere else that she doesn't need. So it's a way that I can give a gift to Lily. She's learning about banking because you can see all of this. It's like an account, an online banking account. You can see it online all the time. Kelly sits with her daughter and they look at their balances and where their money is and how much money. And Lily's even been working at saving some of her money that she earns from her chores to make deposits herself into her ABLE account. Maryland ABLE also has a prepaid card option. So I want you to note it's a prepaid card. It's not a debit card. And we have this card so that people can use this in places where Visa is accepted. So this is a Visa card and it's only good for the amount of money that you load onto it. So unlike a debit card where you could just keep using it until the account was completely empty, this is a card where you, as the person who's helping to assist manage the account, if you're in that role, can determine how much money is accessible at any given time. That prepaid card has a statement from TrueLink that gives you information, and you can look that up at any time as well. And you can look and see where the expenses were, and you can look at what the balances are. And then we also have payroll deduction for a beneficiary. So here's that gifting page. It's very easy to customize. You can set a yearly gifting limit, because you might say, you know, in order to keep my balance below $2,000 in my account, I know I'm going to have to deposit at least $100 a month to keep that from happening. So I want to make sure that I don't get too many gifts that keep me at the end of the year from being able to make the deposits I need to make. So you can set a gifting limit that will alert you and your gifter that you've reached that limit, and you can decide then if you want to override it, or if you want to say, oh, please don't deposit right now because I need that space in my ABLE account. But there's a way to do that by setting up the page. And you get to put your own message out there, and you get to decide who you want to send it to. You don't have to set up the gifting page, but it is an option that's available. The same with the prepaid card. This is an option. It is not something that you get automatically. You have to request it. And it is something that has an additional fee attached to it. And that fee is $1.25 a month, whether you use the card at all or whether you use the card 100 times a day. So it's just a monthly fee, and it comes directly off of the card after you activate the card. So again, if you're interested in the ABLE card, then it's something that you would have to request after you enroll in the program. It's a really nice thing for some folks, just teaching them how to budget. And what I really like about our ABLE card is it does provide an opportunity for folks to be able to have that transaction independently. And for us as folks who provide support to not have to worry about the ability to make change, giving too much money, losing money, it's a very simple thing. The other thing is, if you do lose the card, you just go online and you put a stop on the card, and you can do that yourself right then. You don't have to call up the company and have them stop the card. You can do that. And when you find it in the back pocket of somebody's jeans 3 days later, you can turn the card back on. Or if it's lost for good, you can request a replacement card. Payroll deduction is another option that is available for beneficiaries. So if you have someone who is working and they want to contribute an amount of their money from their payroll to their ABLE account, they can automatically do that. And there's a form on our website, and there are guides and instructions for that. Here's a really lovely opportunity that Maryland provides to its residents. Not all states have this kind of benefit with their ABLE program, but Maryland does. We have the same benefit that a college savings program has, in that contributions made to a Maryland ABLE account can be deducted from the gifter's income before taxes on their Maryland income tax. So I have a couple of friends who have family members with ABLE accounts, and I make contributions to those ABLE accounts. And I'm able to take the amount of those total contributions up to $2,500, because I'm a single person filing single, off of my income before my taxes are assessed for my Maryland income tax. It's $2,500 per person per ABLE account. It's $5,000 if a couple is filing jointly. Remember, it's per ABLE account. So we do have people who have more than one family member who have ABLE accounts. So that means $2,500 per person per ABLE account can be deducted based on the amount of their contributions. So it can be a really wonderful opportunity to reduce your tax base in Maryland for your income by using this particular benefit. I say to everyone that when I win the Mega Millions or the Powerball, I personally am going to deposit $2,500 to every Maryland Able account holder in their account. So imagine how much I'm going to get to deduct from my income. But more than that, I'm going to be able to give a gift of $2,500 to each person. People often say to us, well, this is all well and good, but how much is it going to cost me? Well, we've worked really hard to keep our fees as low as possible because we understand that this is a program to help people with disabilities to save money. So the $35 annual account maintenance fee is really for our program manager in terms of running our program. Our program manager is called Someday. They're a subsidiary of the Bank of New York Mellon. And they do all the back end work. They're the ones who maintain the accounts, they maintain the website, they maintain the stock trades and purchases and sales when you withdraw and deposit money. So that's really what that account maintenance fee is all about. That fee is withdrawn quarterly from the Able account directly, and it's prorated. It comes out to about $8.79 per quarter, but if you were to join today, you wouldn't pay $8.79 for this first quarter. You would only pay for the days that you had an account open in this quarter. So that's the prorated portion. You wouldn't be paying that full $35 this year. And for this quarter in particular, you wouldn't pay for the first several months of the year. You would only pay for the days that you had the account in the quarter. So it's an annual maintenance fee. It comes right out of the account. There are also asset-based fees on the investment options, and that varies by which investment option you choose. Please look at our disclosure booklet or disclosure statement, which again is on the website to see what they are. We've worked really hard to keep them as low as possible. And in fact, our new director of investments was able to just lower one of those investment fees because we're able to pool our amount of accounts with our college savings plan for a couple of the options that we offer in our stock portfolio are the same. So it gave us a different share class and it gave us the opportunity to lower the actual fees. So we're constantly looking at ways to reduce these. I strongly encourage you, if you would like to look at other programs to see how our fees compare. I feel confident in saying we have some of the lowest fees across the country, both in terms of our asset-based fees and our annual maintenance fees. So for Maryland Able, we work very hard to keep these as low as possible. So all of that, I hope, has gotten you excited and interested in enrolling. So let's just talk a little bit about enrollment. In order to enroll in our program, you can visit our website, which is www.marylandable.org. And here I have to say this because this has caused confusion for a lot of folks we've learned. Make sure you're on the Maryland Able website and that you see our logo as you see in the lower right-hand corner. Because if you just Google Maryland Able, what you will get is the first thing that comes up says Able Now available to residents of Maryland. And Able Now is actually the name of the program in the state of Virginia. And so we've had a lot of people who accidentally enrolled in the Virginia program thinking they were enrolling in the Maryland program. If you want to enroll in the Virginia program, that's fine. I just don't want you to be confused by that because that does happen to people. It will not allow you to take the tax deduction because you have to have a Maryland Able account to take the tax deduction. And they have different investment options and their fees are different as well. So I just want to make sure that if you're wanting to enroll in Maryland Able, that when you go onto the website, you see Maryland Able and our little arrows. You'll also see that picture that you saw on the first slide for the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County, the little girl blowing the dandelion. That same picture is on our website. So just wanted to let you know. On our site, we also have our program disclosure booklet, some frequently asked questions, and all of the forms that I've referenced are on there as well. When you open an account, you're going to see this screen pop up that says Someday. And some people think, oh my gosh, I'm not on Maryland Able anymore. As I told you, they are our program manager. They're the ones who actually do the back end work for us in terms of the computer system and all of the account functions. So when you see Someday a BNY Mellon company, that is still Maryland Able. As you sit down to enroll, you want to make sure that you have the Social Security number for the beneficiary and yours if you're acting as an authorized legal representative. And if you're an authorized legal representative that is not a parent of a child under the age of 18, and you're using that authorized legal representative by way of power of attorney or guardianship, you're going to need to upload those papers along with the enrollment for our program folks to look at and review to make sure that there is legal authority for you to act on this account. And then bank account information, because our accounts are linked to bank accounts. So you have an outside bank account and a Maryland ABLE account, and that allows you to switch back and forth between those, make transfers between those two accounts. If you don't have a bank that you want, a bank account you want to link it to, you can do that, but all of your transactions for deposits or withdrawals may occur more often in paper form, which is going to take longer. And quite honestly, I still have a Christmas card that I sent to a friend in Florida that's never arrived. So if we're going to trust it to the post office in paper, it might take some time. When you get on an account, you sign in. When you get an account, you get to sign in, and that's where you can manage your account from. As I said, it's just like online banking. You can see what deposits have been made, what the balance is, how many shares you have. You can make contributions, you can transfer out of your account, and you can change your investment options all from that particular site. And if you're needing any kind of support in any of this, enrollment, or when you're actually doing something and it's not making sense for you, we have a live chat on our website. So there's an opportunity to utilize the live chat function. We have customer support. You can call our Maryland ABLE customer support at 1-855-563-2253. They're open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we have some extended hours during the week. We also have email questions@marylandable.org. So you can make a request for some assistance there, and we'll be happy to get back to you. So we try to offer people as many different ways to get assistance as possible. Here's a summary, just some important numbers for you to keep in mind. In order to open an account, it takes $25. That is not a fee, that is the first $25 in the ABLE account. And then any subsequent deposits after that have to be at least $10. So you can't make a $5 deposit, but you can make anything above $10. When you open an account, you can open it with $25, you can open it with $15,000. As long as you have at least 25, you can open the account. Those fees, as I said, are $35 annual account maintenance fees. There are asset-based fees, investment options, and there is a $1.25 monthly fee if you select the prepaid card option. Don't forget, there's that $15,000 annual limit that is for everybody. Anybody who has an ABLE account has the $15,000 annual limit. It does reset on January 1 of each year. So there's an additional $15,000 that can be contributed each year. If you qualify as a beneficiary for Able to Work, because you are not contributing to a retirement program, nor is your employer's, you can contribute the amount of your gross earnings up to $12,750 for your ABLE account. So there's the potential of $27,750 that could go in each year. In terms of the limits on the account, don't forget that you've gone from a $2,000 asset limit on many benefits such as SSI to $100,000 before SSI benefits are impacted. And I really want to say to you, the other great benefit about ABLE and SSI is when your account balance reaches that $100,000, $102,000, what happens is the SSI benefit is suspended until the balance comes below that $100,000. That state of suspension can go on forever if need be. Whereas if you don't have an ABLE account and you lose cash benefits and your account gets suspended, without an ABLE account, suspension can only last up to 12 months before a person is disenrolled. And when they're disenrolled, they not only have lost their Social Security benefits, they also have lost their Medicaid benefits, which is catastrophic for many people. So by having the ABLE account, it's always going to stay in that state of suspension. If you've reached that limit, you will not lose Medicaid benefits. And when you go below 100,000, it comes back on. You don't have to worry about being disenrolled and then having to re-enroll in the future. Because any of you who have gone through enrollment in an SSI benefit know that it can be quite challenging. We have that $500,000 maximum account value, and that's the point at which we can't accept any more contributions until the balance goes below that 500,000. And in Maryland, we are happy to be able to say that there's a $2,500 state income deduction per contributor per ABLE account for anyone who is paying Maryland state taxes. So those are important things to keep in mind. In order to contact us, you can reach us at www.marylandable.org, or as I said, we have a specific mailbox called questions@marylandable.org that comes directly to me and Kelly, so we can look at that every day and answer questions. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. Kelly oftentimes posts not only things about ABLE, but important notifications that come out from Social Security or other types of seminars and webinars that are being offered that would be of interest to the people who have ABLE accounts. And we're on Twitter at Maryland ABLE. So now let's go ahead and take some questions. I think we're just a few minutes early for that, but I'm ready to open it up for questions. So Kalani?
Yes, thank you, Betty-Ann. Actually, before the questions, I just wanted everyone to, if you can look at the chat, we do have evaluations for the workshop, so please be sure to fill those out. It helps us to organize workshops that meet everybody's needs. So please do fill out the evaluation. So one of the questions that we received actually prior to your presentation is about purchasing real property. And is that possible with the ABLE account, or can you use it to assist with a down payment for a new home?
If you had enough money in your ABLE account to buy property, you can use that if that's going to support the person with a disability and their health, independence, and quality of life. And my guess is the answer to that is yes. So you are not restricted based on purchase of real property. Whether it's a down payment on a home, whether it's a vehicle, whatever that might be.
So from your presentation, it seems like the Maryland ABLE account is sort of a central account in Maryland. So the question is, are there any financial institutions in Montgomery County, Maryland that handle ABLE accounts? It's an online system where you kind of put it all into an account, right?
Yeah. It's people often say, what bank can I go to open an ABLE account? You can only open an ABLE account online or via sending the paper application to our Sunday offices. It's not a program that is offered through the bank. It's just that you're going to connect your ABLE account to a banking account as an easy way to transfer money in and out of that account and have accessibility to it. But you can't go to a bank and open an account. You can only do that online or with our paper application and mail.
Thank you. Can one put money from special needs trust account into ABLE account and vice versa? Can you move money from the ABLE account to a special needs trust?
Great question. And normally I say that in my presentation. We do have a lot of folks who have both ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. And they are oftentimes using the ABLE account to transfer money from the special needs trust to the ABLE account because of the accessibility issues with trusts and the ease of accessibility with a ABLE account. So we oftentimes have that. And yes, if you had money that you were going to put into the trust from the ABLE account, you wouldn't be restricted from doing that.
So you mentioned there's actually now two types of cards. Is that correct? For sort of like a debit account, and then you also have sort of like a credit card that's available to individuals.
Okay, so let me just clarify. There's just one, and it says debit card on it, excuse me, but it's actually a prepaid card. It's a Visa prepaid card. So there's not two different things. There's just one. It's the TrueLink Maryland ABLE Visa card, and it is the debit it is a prepaid card. See, I'm getting caught up. It's not a debit card. Debit cards would be things that would allow you access to the full balance of the account. And so we don't have that. What we have is a prepaid card. So it's preloaded money that's placed on the card, and that's the value of the card.
You mentioned that upon death that the funds that are in the ABLE account can be used for funeral expenses and whatever debt is outstanding. What happens after all that's paid and there's still remaining funds that are in the ABLE account?
Well, at that point, we have a year to wait to see if there are going to be any additional claims on the account, potentially, and then the money is, it doesn't have to be a year, but we have at least a year where Medicaid would have the opportunity, if they chose, to seek reimbursement. Now, what I want to tell you is, while the federal law says Medicaid will recoup from ABLE accounts from the time the ABLE account opened until the death of the person, an equivalent of the amount of money that long-term services paid for, Maryland had a law passed, and the law says that Medicaid will not seek that reimbursement unless federally mandated to do so. And so that federal mandate is the same mandate that any live by, and that is over the age of 55, if we receive long-term care services, then federal Medicaid could seek reimbursement for the amount of money that was given for long-term care services. Now remember, if there were ever a Medicaid recoupment from the federal government for an ABLE account, it can only be from the start of when the ABLE account opened. So if we had someone who was 70 years old and opened an ABLE account at 70, and there was a federal recoupment from them, although I can tell you we've not had any at this point, that the Medicaid recoupment from the federal basis would only be the amount paid from the time that they opened the ABLE account at 70, even though they may have received services all of their life. So across the nation, that's not happening. Medicaid is just not going to recoup, but we have this law passed in Maryland, and I'm happy to share with people the law that was passed and show exactly what that law says around Medicaid in Maryland.
So
finish answering that. So so what happens then is it's turned over to the estate if there's a will, or to probate. So whatever the direction is given to us by the person who notifies us that the person has passed. So if there's an estate or probate, then we would send it there.
So I know that there were some questions about the maximum amount. Was it initially 350,000 and then it was increased to 500,000?
You guys are on the ball. You're absolutely right. So when I told you it's tied to Maryland College Savings Plans just 2 years ago were $350,000 limit, and they increased to 500,000. So we increased to 500,000 as well. Yeah, sharp people out there. They remember that. That's great.
Okay, so and then is it possible that future legislation will look at the balance in these two accounts to determine eligibility for Social Security and other benefits?
The purpose of this was to give people an asset protection to allow people to continue to qualify for benefits. So legislation in the future, as we see it, is to add to and enhance this program to make it a more usable and accessible program for people with disabilities. Social Security is tied to this program because of the asset limitations on SSI, and we report those balances every month. That's a requirement that we have federally to SSI, that there are ABLE accounts, so that they know you have ABLE accounts. And that way, you know, seeing extra money in your bank account at the end of the month when that's looked at or reported as over the year or whatever, it's easy for them to see, to say, oh, was this money transferred from the ABLE account? Because they're going to know that there's an ABLE account. They're monitoring that $100,000 just like they are the $2,000. Okay. So I can't tell you that never is something going to happen, because, you know, what have we got to guarantee other than, what is it they say? The only thing that's guaranteed in life is death. But what I can tell you is the purpose of this program, the whole reason this program was set up, was to be an asset protection from those asset limitations. So I don't see that being something that would happen.
Where did the, excuse me, where did the $102,000 come from?
So it's $100,000 in the ABLE account combined with $2,000, that $2,000 asset limit outside of the ABLE account. So that makes 102.
Okay, I guess the question is actually the $100,000 limit. Where did that cap come from?
That was just part of the law in the determination. That number, that 100,000, that was part of the IRS regulation, and that was a number they came up with, 100,000. Considering that they've been trying for years to get that $2,000 asset limit increased with no success, the fact that Social Security gave us 100,000, that was quite a success.
And then just to clarify, the employee to work program, the 12,760, that does contribute to the $500,000 maximum, right? So that's
Yes.
part of that.
Any contributions added together to equal that 500,000, yes.
Can a person have both a 529 college savings plan and an ABLE account?
Another great question, absolutely. There's not a limitation on having both.
So I'm not sure exactly.
That there's more flexibility in terms of what you can spend it on in ABLE than what you can spend it on in 529. But yes, I'm sorry, Kalini.
Oh, that's okay. This question I'm trying to see if I can clarify. So it asks what happens with the account if you can roll over. I'm assuming it's rolling over to a special needs trust or another account. So what happens to the actual ABLE account?
Okay, so there's a couple of kinds of rollovers. So there's a rollover from one state program to the next. That's full amount. Okay, so if you move from here to another state and you want to take your ABLE account to that state, that's a full rollover. Total amount of the account, the Maryland account is closed and the new account is opened because you can only have one account at a time. If you're doing a rollover from a college savings program into ABLE, that can be made up to the $15,000 less the existing contributions for that year in the account. So that's a rollover that can occur annually and if you need to get to close out a college savings account. That's another kind of rollover. You wouldn't roll over to a trust. You would close the account and put the money into the trust. These other things are seamlessly kind of done on the back end with the college savings program and BNY, and the money doesn't have to even come to you if you don't want to. It can go directly to the program. If you get the check, you have 60 days to deposit it in without paying penalties, tax penalties, if you take it out of a college savings plan to go into ABLE.
Somebody was wondering if these materials are in Spanish as well, or the resources, are they offered in Spanish?
We do have a brochure and a rack card and an explanation of the different kinds of trusts versus ABLE in Spanish that we can provide. We have slated for the next fiscal year. So starting after July, we'll start the process of translating our website into Spanish, but that's not something we have done at this point in time.
What is the deadline for the tax year contribution, for example, for 2020?
It's the same as the end of the tax year, so December 31st.
And I think you already talked about this, but can a parent open both a special needs trust and a Maryland ABLE account?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Does the dependent need to be associated with a bank account to transfer money to and from an ABLE account?
So you don't have to have a bank account. You can do that in other ways. The linked bank account just makes things a lot quicker because they're not having to, when you make a withdrawal, you're not having to have a check issued and then have a check mailed kind of thing if there's not a linked bank account.
So you indicated, you indicated that you can fund ABLE account with stock shares. How do you do this?
So when you make a selection on where you want your money to go, if you choose one of our investment options, the conservative, moderate, or aggressive option, all of the packages have stocks included.
My onions.
And you can see what those stocks are if you look into our program disclosure booklet. And you can see they're all part of a Vanguard portfolio. Let me see, I have our disclosure booklet right here. If I can just name off a couple of them. A Vanguard Total International Stock Fund Index Fund, Vanguard Short-Term Bond Index Fund, Vanguard Total Bond International Bond Index, DFA Global Real Estate Securities Fund. It tells you what those stocks are and what percentage of each of those investment options goes into which of those. And that I just named a few. They're all listed, I think on page 44 in our program disclosure booklet. It'll tell you exactly what stocks. So you don't get to pick which stocks. They're part of a pre-packaged plan because that's the way we keep the costs as low as we do.
There's also a clarification question. The difference, explaining the difference between the 100,000 and the 500,000. I think the 100,000 is what you can have before SSI kicks in after 100,000, and then 500,000 is the maximum contribution. Is that correct?
Right. It can the maximum contribution. So if you reach $500,000, 500,000, you can continue to earn interest and dividends on that account. That can continue to happen. You just wouldn't be able to give us money to put in the account until the balance went below 500,000.
Can one specify survivors for inheritance for ABLE accounts?
If it's specified within the will. Remember, the beneficiary and the account holder are the same person. They are always the beneficiary on the account. So you can't right now you can't specify another beneficiary.
Okay, so it would have to be written in the will. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And here's a caveat too, you can roll over to a sibling or step sibling. So if there were a sibling or step siblings who had ABLE accounts and one of them became terminally ill and was near end of life, you could do that rollover before the life end of the one sibling into the other's account and do the full amount. But after death, you can't do a rollover from one account to the other.
Can the prepaid card be used outside of the country?
Yes. There are, just like when I use my credit card, I think there's some additional transaction fees charged for international transactions. It's all listed in the disclosure statement that they give you, just like you do with any credit card. It's going to tell you exactly what those fees are.
Are therapies such as speech therapy eligible expenses?
The question is that going to support the person in health independence or quality of life? And I'm sure the answer is yes. So I can never say to you yes or no, because I don't know the person that you're asking about. But if you're talking about therapies, that's a pretty sure thing, I think.
So the $100,000, again, a clarification question, the $100,000 applies to SSI benefits and not to SSDI.
Yes, exactly.
And just for, I think there's a little bit of confusion. Can you just clarify the difference between the two? For those
so one is Social Security benefit for the person. SSDI is given to somebody who has a parent who has passed and had Social Security benefits. So there's Social Security disability benefits. If someone has a disability, let's say that a parent has become disabled themselves and then they pass away, then their child can pick up some of that disability income in addition, that SSDI. So SSDI is Social Security disability income. Insurance, I'm sorry, not income, insurance.
Should the special needs person specify in a will who should get money if they die?
Can you say that question again? I'm sorry, Kalani.
Sure. Should the special needs person specify in a will who should get the money from the ABLE account, I'm assuming, if they pass away?
Sure, the beneficiary, the account owner can have a will and can specify where they want that money to go.
So what's your availability to help families set up an ABLE account? What kind of support is available?
So the availability is, if you tried to do it right now, it's after 8 o'clock, so our customer service, our support is closed. You would have to wait till morning to get that kind of support. You'd have live support that you could have through chat or customer service from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Any other time, if you needed to have a question answered, you can send that question to us at questions@marylandable.org, and we'll try to get it to answer those the very next day for you. Work really hard to make sure that our customer service is there for folks and helping people with what they need.
So going back to the question on stocks, there's actually a clarification on that. It was about the person with disabilities transferring their own stocks shares to the ABLE account. Is that possible?
They wouldn't be able to transfer the stocks. They have to sell those stocks, and any money earned from those stocks, any dividends earned from those stocks could be deposited into the ABLE account. There is not a limitation on what kind of money can go into ABLE. So in other words, if you liquidate your portfolio, your stock portfolio, and you get a check for that, that can go into the ABLE account. But if you currently own certain stock, you can't transfer that stock as a stock into the ABLE account, because the ABLE stocks are a grouped portfolio through Vanguard. And like I said, that's how we are able to keep our fees down.
So are our 529 funds similarly protected from the asset caps from SSI and Medicaid? I don't know if you'd be able to answer that.
They are not. They are not. Only an ABLE account. So if you have money in a 529, it may be considered as an asset, but if it's in an ABLE account, it's not counted as an asset.
Can I, as a parent, retain control over the account? And then how does a parent designate themselves?
Well, when you enroll, it will ask, are you the parent of a minor? Are you guardian? Do you have guardianship? Are you using power of attorney? So it's going to ask. It's going to know if the enrollee, if the beneficiary is 18 or younger. So as parent for someone under the age of 18, you are considered legal guardian. So you would be able to access as an authorized legal representative through that function.
So to clarify, does the ABLE account owner need to be associated with a bank account? So it's easier and avoids paper.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not a requirement, but most people, that's how they do it, because it makes it very easy to do.
So there's a clarification.
And the linked bank account, if I can just explain, it doesn't have to be in the name of the beneficiary. The linked bank account can be the parent's linked, it can be any linked bank account. Whichever bank account you're going to be moving money in and out of to the ABLE account. Which one are you going to be transferring money from typically, and which one are you going to want the money to go to so that you can use it? You know, it could be a checking account, could be a savings account, whichever.
So for the question, going back to the question about the parent retaining control, it's for somebody who's over 18 and has no guardianship.
So then you would want to look at the power of attorney form and have that person grant that power of attorney for the parent to continue to manage the account. And as I said, we've provided the form. Power of attorney is not a cost, it's just a notary. So that's there for you.
I think that is it. Making sure that I've got everybody's questions. So, and I know you do offer a lot of these workshops throughout the month. Is there a way for people, if they wanted to refer people, or I mean, we'll have this presentation as well on our website, the Down Syndrome Network's website. But are there other ways to go and find out where workshops are available?
Many of those that are open to the public would be posted on our website, but if you ever want to know if we have something coming up that you could join, just a question to questions@marylandable.org, and we'll let you know if we have something coming up. It might be an organization like this, and we can let you know how you might be able to register for that. But anything that is a public training, we are certainly open to people joining. If anybody knows of organizations or groups of people that would like us to do a training, just let us know that, and we're happy to schedule those as well.
Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions. So hold on one second. One just popped up. Okay. So there's some questions, I guess, more of a personal nature. What would be the best way to contact somebody for more personal questions?
Send us your contact information through questions@marylandable.org, and either Kelly or myself will call you or email you directly.
All right. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's very informative. Thank you all for joining us. Again, please be on the lookout. We will be having more workshops on a variety of topics. So please be on the lookout for that. We just had one on actually special needs trust. But it's sort of the whole gamut of things that parents are concerned about. So please be on the lookout for that. And again, we'll have this presentation recorded on our website, and it was listed here under parent workshops. And then we do have the evaluation form available. So please, again, go ahead and fill that out for us. Thank you so much for attending, and have a good night.